created this video as a library of drone moves that you can use when you are out flying. Now, this video is going to be a little bit different than the other videos I've done on drone moves because I'm not just going to give you 100+ specific moves. I want to go through the different factors that will change the feeling and the tone of the content that you're creating. So when you're flying a drone, you can use the same shot, but depending on a few different factors, it's really gonna change that shot and it's gonna become something entirely different. So how I've broken down this video is into 3 parts. Part 1 is going to go through these 4 different factors that's gonna change your drone shots. The second part is gonna go through some common types of shots that you're gonna use with your drone. And then the third section is a drone move library. Now, when we get into section 3, the drone library, I'm gonna show you on my controller how you can actually do each one of these moves so you can go out and practice them yourself. Now, this is not every move that you can make with your drone. However, there is a ton in this library that you can pull from and actually see how all these factors work together. And between the library, the types of shots, and the different ways to use your drone, you can create hundreds of different drone moves in your own videos. A couple things before we get into section 1. First is that the type of drone that you're using really doesn't matter. Every drone's gonna have its benefits, but most of these shots can be performed on any drone. And it really comes down to shooting at the right time of day and understanding your camera settings to be able to get the best looking footage out of your drone shots. And if you wanna learn everything you need to know about how to fly your drone and get better looking footage, I'll put my beginner's guide down below in the description and also at the end of this video. And the second thing is, your story is gonna dictate what you want to do with your drone. You really wanna think through what is happening with your subject or with the scene that you're filming, and then find a drone shot that's gonna help tell that story. I like to think story first and then focus on the visuals and find a cool way to tell the story rather than just putting the drone up to get pretty looking shots. All right, let's get into section 1, which is the 4 factors that are gonna change your shot. So number 1 is the height. How high your drone will change how your drone's gonna look. So with most drones, you can now point your gimbal a little bit upwards, meaning that you have a lot of flexibility with how you can fly your drone. So you could be a little lower than your subject pointed up at it, you could be at eye level, you could be above eye level, you could be way higher than eye level and pointed down, and then ultimately you can be right above your subject or your scene looking straight down on it. So the height is gonna make a big difference in how the shot is gonna look. Now the second factor is your speed. So how fast is your drone going? On all DJI products, you're gonna have 3 modes. You're gonna have your cine mode, your normal mode, and your sport mode, which is like super fast. And with most of these shots that we're gonna talk about later in this video, you can shoot in cine, normal, or sport mode, and it's gonna change the shot. So a super slow shot is gonna feel cinematic, it's gonna feel more dramatic, it might make the scene feel more grand, whereas something super fast is gonna give a frantic feeling or that sense of energy within your footage. And then normal is gonna sit somewhere in between. So you might have a scene, and if you wanna ramp up the energy, you're gonna put it into sport mode and try to capture that shot with lots of movement. Whereas if you wanna make something feel just big and epic, you're gonna shoot at a slow speed. And then also between those 3 speeds, you can lightly feather your joysticks so that you're not putting full force up or down, and it's gonna change how fast your drone moves. So a lot of times I'll put it in the cine mode, the super slow mode, but I'm only pushing the joysticks about half the distance that they can go, and it makes the shot even slower. So you're gonna wanna work with your joysticks and really learn how to move them in a way where you can pull them slightly to one direction and not having to go full force all the time. Now the third factor is distance. How far away from your subject or your scene are you? And that's gonna make a big impact. So if you're right on your subject, audience is gonna be focused in on that one thing. Whereas if you're really far away and your subject's tiny, then the focus is the scene in front of them. It's the mountains in the distance or the ocean, how big and grand it is. So you're gonna use your distance from subjects or from whatever it is that you're shooting and play around with that. You might be super close and you might be super far away or somewhere in the middle. And then the fourth factor is your gimbal rotation. You don't always have to fly with your gimbal pointed straight out because you also want your gimbal pointed down, pointed up, pointed straight down on the ground below you. That's a big factor in changing up your shot. By just adjusting the gimbal slightly and then moving the drone up or down or further away from your subject, it changes how the shot feels and creates a completely different move. So those are the 4 factors that you want to think about in the back of your head when you're out filming. And even if you're going out and only trying to do 5 different shots, you use those 4 different factors and you're going to change those up and come up with 30, 40 shots, because each one of those is going to create a different style of movement. Let's get into section 2, which is the different types of shots that you can get using your drone. Now, these aren't the only shots that you can get, but these are some of the most common ones that I keep seeing over and over again when I've been researching different movements with your drone. So number 1 is the establishing shot. And this is a type of filmmaking technique to establish a scene. It's gonna give your audience a bigger view of the scene, and it could be used as something to establish where you're at in a scene. And drones work super well to get these big establishing shots because you can get them high in the sky, far away, and you can show everything in the distance. And the number 2 is the reveal. And this is where your focus is on one part of the scene or one subject, and then the drone moves in a way that it shows something different. So you're revealing something. So for example, if you're coming out from behind trees to reveal the beach in the background, it's a great storytelling tool to build suspense or to drive anticipation or just to show something new in the scene. So it could be used as a transition. The whole idea of a reveal is you're shifting focus from one element to another. So let's talk about a few different reveals that you can do with your drone. One is where the view is hidden and then the drone moves up and past something to reveal what's behind it. Another style of reveal is when you're super close on a subject, it's filling the frame, and then you pull out to reveal the scene of where that subject is. And then another type of reveal is where something comes into frame. So for example, you could have a completely empty frame and then a subject comes in like the Jeeps are doing in this shot. Reveals are a great storytelling tool to keep in your back pocket and something that you should always be thinking about when you're out flying. Is there a need for a reveal in the scene that you're shooting? The third type of shot is a tracking shot, and this is where you have a subject in your frame and you're following that subject. Now you're gonna have to think about the relationship between your drone and that subject to figure out what type of shot makes sense. So you can maintain your speed with that subject and keep the subject in the frame the entire time. You could be moving faster than the subject, so you might blow past it with your drone, or you might be moving slower than your subject and the subject might cross frame and leave, or where the drone's not keeping up and the subject's gonna move past the drone. And you wanna think about this relationship because you don't always just want your subject centered and following them at the same speed. It sometimes looks better if the subject is moving faster or if the subject is moving slower and the drone is going past your subject. And the fourth type of shot that I see common is the fly through. And this is where you're going through objects or past objects really close. And when you're flying through something, you obviously want to make sure that you don't hit anything. You might have to turn your sensors off if you're moving really close to something, but when you're flying through something, it's going to create a different feeling than if you're way up above it. If you're a beginner, I'd highly suggest not starting with this type of shot because you can definitely crash your drone pretty easily. Let's get into section 3, which is a shot library. So I've put together a big list of different styles of drone shots, and I've broken it up into beginner, which is just one direction on your controller, 2 directions on your controller, which is more intermediate, and then 3 or more, which would be more advanced. And you're definitely gonna wanna learn how to use your drone in one direction and really perfect it before you try doing like 3 or 4 directions at once. Flying your drone is a skill, and you wanna make sure that you're smooth and there's no jerky movements. Because as soon as something's jerky or it doesn't look right, it's gonna draw attention to the actual movement of the drone, and it's not gonna look very good. Now the configuration that I'm using on my controller to demonstrate these moves is the standard configuration, and this is what comes out of the box. So the left joystick is gonna raise the drone up into the sky, drop it down, rotate it, and the right joystick is gonna move the drone forward, backwards, and side to side. So if you have a different stick configuration, just keep that in mind when you're watching the rest of this video. And one last thing, I've color graded all of these drone shots using my LUTs, and you'll see in the lower left-hand corner, I'll put which LUT I'm using. And one thing to keep in mind when you're using LUTs is that You don't want to use them always at full 100%. You want to play around with them, and you might do little tweaks on top of a LUT to make it work for the scene that you're shooting in. No LUT is perfect to just slap on and walk away. Sometimes it'll look good, but sometimes you'll need to do minor tweaks to really make your footage pop. All right, so now let's go through all of these different drone movements. Number one is the tripod, and this is the easiest move. All you need to do is fly into position, point the gimbal at the right height for the shot, and just let it sit there, capturing the scene or capturing the subject moving through the scene. The next shot is the reverse, and this is where you pull down on the right joystick and your drone's going to fly backwards. Just make sure when you're doing this, you know there's a clear path behind you and you're not going to run into anything. A lot of drones have sensors to avoid crashes, but you still want to make sure that there's not going to be anything in your way. The next move is the slide, and this is also called a dolly. And this is where you pull right or left on the right joystick. Now, your gimbal's going to be facing forward and you're going to be moving left or right. The next one is the push in, and this is where you push forward on the right joystick. This is one of the most common moves used with a drone, and it's one of the shots that I always capture when I'm flying. Next is the raise up, and this is where you push forward on the left joystick. Your drone's going to ascend into the sky. As I said earlier in this video, use your gimbal rotation to change up all of these shots, and they'll give you a completely different look from your footage. The next shot is the drop down, and this is where you pull down on the left joystick, and your drone is going to descend down in the sky. It's always a good idea when you're landing to make sure that you have a good shot framed up so that you can always grab one of these shots at the end of your flight. Next is the rotation, and this is where you push left or right on the left joystick, and your drone is going to spin in the sky. Now this next batch of shots are all two directions. Now you might be using just one of your joysticks and going in two directions, or you'll be using both joysticks simultaneously to be able to capture these moves. The first is the angled push or the reverse push. So you either pull to the upper corners or the lower corners of the right joystick. Now this set of moves pushes the drone forward while also sliding it to the left or right. And you can also do this in reverse, where the drone is moving backwards and also sliding left or right. Next is the raise up and push forward. This is where you push up on both joysticks at the same time. Your drone's gonna go high into the sky while also pushing forward over the landscape. Now the next move is very similar to the last move, but you're using the left joystick. So you're pushing in one of the four corners. And this will either raise up and rotate or drop down and rotate. So basically your drone is going to be raising up into the sky or coming down low, but at the same time you're spinning the drone. So you create this spiral as you're going up and coming down. Next is the raise up with reverse. So on the left joystick, you're going to be pushing forward. On the right joystick, you're going to be pulling backwards. And what will happen is the drone's going to raise up into the sky while also moving backwards. And this is a great reveal to use for your scene. So you can start close on a subject and then pull back and out to reveal the bigger picture. Next is the raise up with the gimbal rotation down. So you're going to be using the left joystick, pushing forward, and then your finger's gonna be on the gimbal and you're gonna be pulling it down. And so what will happen is your drone's gonna go up into the sky and you wanna try to follow a subject with your gimbal as it focuses down towards the ground. It's a cool shift in perspective. You can do the same thing in reverse, so you can drop down and rotate the gimbal up. This is where you'll start from a higher perspective and you drop down to see that more eye level perspective. Next is the orbit. This is a classic shot with a drone. This is where you have a subject centered or a spot in the landscape centered and you're rotating around that point. There's two ways to do this move. You either pull right on the left joystick and left on the right joystick, or you do the reverse, where you pull left on the left joystick and right on the right joystick. You can make this move super slow and big, or you can make it really fast and small. Play around with your distance and your speed to really change up this move and give you some different styles of orbits. Now next is a push in with a gimbal rotation down. So this is where you're flying across a landscape and then you're going to focus in and down on something that you're flying over. It's a cool shot to drive your attention to something in the landscape. And you can also do this in reverse. So you can pull down on the right joystick and rotate your gimbal up. And this you can start looking down on something and then reverse out while also pointing up to reveal the scene in the distance. Let's get into the advanced section, which is combining 3 or more movements to create your shot. The first is a reverse slide with a rotation. So you're gonna pull right or left with the left joystick and then you're gonna pull down to one of the corners on the right joystick. And this type of movement is gonna give you a much bigger sweep than if you were to just go in one direction on the right joystick. Now, the same type of shot is a push and slide with a rotation as well. So instead of moving backwards using this arcing motion, you're gonna be moving forwards and towards something. Now, to take this a step further, you're gonna add a gimbal rotation with one of these movements. So for this sample, I'm reverse sliding backwards, rotating while also moving my gimbal upwards. Now next, let's take an orbit and add a rotation with the gimbal. So you're gonna be centering around a subject, and then you're gonna change your perspective. So for this sample, I'm going left on the left joystick, right on the right joystick, while also rotating my gimbal up. So you're seeing this change in perspective. Now next, we're going to drop down and rotate while also sliding. This is another big arcing motion, but we're gonna be descending while we're doing it. So you're rotating down and around a point on the horizon. So for this sample, it's the pier. So this is like an orbit moving downwards. So you're spiraling around something while also descending. Now next is a very similar shot, but you're moving upwards, and we're also adding forward motion. So for this one, the left joystick is pointed up to the upper right corner, and the right joystick is pointed to the upper left corner. So you could do these same types of shots while also pushing forward and pulling back. Now let's add a gimbal rotation to that. This next sample is an orbit while also bringing the gimbal downwards. So the left joystick is going in the upper left-hand corner, right joystick sliding to the right, and you're rotating the gimbal down. And that allows me to create a big spiral around a subject while also changing perspective. And take that a step further, we're also gonna push forward while doing that same movement. Now a similar shot, but in reverse, is descending down, doing the same type of movement pattern. So bottom corner on the left joystick while pushing right on the right joystick with a slight rotation upwards on the gimbal. Now the next shot is pushing forward while descending and also rotating the gimbal upwards. So you're gonna be moving in and towards a point while also rotating the gimbal up, so the horizon's gonna change in your shot. Next is an orbit with a push in, so you're gonna push up in either corner, and it's going to create this big spiral helix style motion. And you could also do this moving backwards. So this is the same thing, but pulling backwards on the right joystick. A lot of these moves in this last section are much harder to pull off, but with a little practice, you'll be able to combine these movements together and create really awesome looking drone shots. So between all of these drone movements and all of the factors that we talked about at the beginning of this video, you can come up with hundreds of combinations of drone movements to use in your videos. Like I said earlier, the key thing is thinking through your story and what movement is gonna best tell that story. Now next, I highly suggest you check out this video here. It's a beginner's guide on how to fly your drone and get better looking footage. I'll see you over there.